near the northern shore of the Dead Sea in the area of Qumran. 3 Bedouin shepherd boys were herding goats when one of their flock went astray. While looking for it, one of the boys came near a cave, and like any curious boy, he threw a stone into the cave. Upon investigating, he found a simple collection of clay pots. One of them, broken by his stray rock, had some scrolls spilled out of it onto the cave floor. Though unknown to the boy then, it was the single greatest discovery in the history of biblical archaeology. These were the first of the Dead Sea Scrolls. From 1947 to 1956, hundreds of manuscripts were discovered in 11 different caves, dating from the 3rd century BC to the 1st century AD. Researchers were astonished that they were nearly identical to the Old Testament Bible we know today, including fragments of the Book of Daniel. More copies of the Book of Daniel were found than most of the other Old Testament books. The oldest copy of Daniel was dated 125 BC, though the original, or the autograph, would have been much older. The ancient Hebrews required many cycles of copying and distribution, at least 100 years, before an autograph could be considered canonical or as part of the Bible. And the Qumran non-biblical documents themselves quote Daniel 12, verse 10, as written in the book of Daniel, the prophet. This reference to Daniel means that the Qumran community regarded him as a real historical person and as a prophet. 1st century historian Josephus and Jesus Christ also endorsed Daniel as a prophet. In his book Antiquities of the Jews, Josephus writes, "Let him be diligent in reading the book of Daniel, which he will find among the sacred writings, Daniel the prophet." And while giving his list of last-day predictions, Jesus includes Daniel. When you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, whoever reads, let him understand. No book in the Bible has been more scrutinized and criticized than Daniel. Its detailed prophecies predict with mathematical precision over 2,000 years of history, such as the rise and fall of empires, beginning with the kingdom of Babylon. The exact time of the first coming of the Messiah, and the rise of the Antichrist after the fall of Rome. No human could guess these events in that sequence and have them fulfilled in that order. If Daniel actually wrote his book in the 6th century BC, as it indicates, then it proves that there is a God of history who controls the course of nations. Stephanie was out on a walk with her new boyfriend, Dondi. She wanted to share with him her practice of walking the labyrinth.
I had no idea at the time what it was all about. She started walking the labyrinth and explaining all these things to me, and I thought, wait a minute, this doesn't sound biblical to me.
Back in the 1990s, Dondi hit rock bottom. The party life wasn't fun anymore, and he was desperate for hope. Stumbling onto a book about answers to prayer, he wound up at the home of well-known author Roger Morneau, a former demon worshiper who became a Christian prayer warrior.
I wanted to know what he knew and why his prayers were so powerful. We studied the Bible, we talked about prayer life, we talked about his experiences and what God has done for him. When I was there, I saw he had all these letters on his table from people all over the world, and he says, I realized that how truly little faith there was out there.
Dondi saw Roger's printer that had been printing without ink for several years. Roger was retired and had limited funds. He had asked God to help him print the thousands of letters he responded to, like this one. Ken had written to Roger in 1996 asking for special prayer, just like more than 25,000 people on Roger's prayer list. Your letter was read at least 2 or more times and presented before the Lord and placed on my perpetual prayer list, never to be removed. Ken was amazed that Roger had replied with encouragement and stressing the importance of reading from Matthew 27 every day. If we want power from on high in praying for oneself or for others, we must go where the power is to be found.
Every morning he woke up, he read this Matthew 27, 24 to 54, the power chapter in the Bible, as he called it. And that when he prayed for people, he asked for forgiveness first, and that he thanked God for appropriating to him that day the merits of the precious sacred blood shed on Calvary. Then he would follow by the intercessional prayer for people.
Dondi was curious to look inside Roger's Bible.
And so I picked it up and I turned it to that chapter in Matthew that he talks about. And he had to laminate the pages just to keep them intact. I felt very in awe to hold that and then to see that and to verify that all the things that he talks about in his books, that's real. He told me he'd put me on his prayer list. And when I left his place, I was convicted that everything was going to be okay. It was the beginning of filling that void.
Roger died in 1998. He was confident that Jesus Christ, the great high priest, would carry on intercessions for the people in his prayer list. Because he lives forever, Jesus Christ has an unchangeable priesthood. He always lives to make intercession for them. Dondi started praying for Stephanie, applying the biblical principles he learned from Roger.
I was having difficulty keeping up with the readings, and the books weren't resonating with me. I even challenged some of the content with my instructors who really did not appreciate that at all. When I questioned one of the instructors about how she could venture into Buddhism and still remain in the Christian religion, she says, "I don't really see a conflict." God started opening my eyes. Something's not right here. I don't know what it is.
So how did mysticism come into the Christian church? We will see that it came from the same source as the belief in the immortality of the soul. Thomas Keating's centering prayer was inspired by the 14th century mystical manual, The Cloud of Unknowing. The anonymous author admitted his ideas came from another author, the same author that influenced the mystical theology of other medieval Catholic mystics such as Teresa of Avila, John of the Cross, Thomas Aquinas, and Meister Eckhart, to name a few. The author is now known as Pseudo-Dionysius the Areopagite, or Denis, whose writings date to around 500 AD. Denis presented himself as a disciple of the Apostle Paul, a pretense that was generally accepted until the late 1800s, thus giving his work an almost apostolic authority. Much of Denis's work is based on the writings of Proclus, a Neoplatonist and one of the last directors of Plato's Academy in Athens, founded 800 years earlier. Thomas Merton, the famous 20th century Catholic monk, stated that Denis was the real propagator of Christian mystical theology. Through Denis, some of the most purely Neoplatonist elements enter into Christianity, and they are accepted without question. Merton describes Denis's mystical theology as a transcendent and experienced theology. It is passive, invaded, and possessed by ecstatic love. Ecstasy is a complete break with sense, with intelligence, and with the self. Catholic mystics refer to ecstasy or contemplation as a foretaste of the beatific vision, which Catholics believe is the immediate experience of God after death. Jesuit priest William Johnston explains, "Death is the door to the ultimate ecstasy. In the lives of the mystics, we find foretastes of this final beatifying ecstasy." In other words, Johnston is saying that the core of mysticism is the belief in the immortality of the soul, which came to Western civilization through Plato, a mystic himself, who describes the soul and the related practice of mysticism in the Phaedo. The soul is in the very likeness of the divine, and immortal, and intelligible, and unchangeable. Do we believe that there is such a thing as death? To be sure. And is this anything but the separation of the soul and body? The one aim of those who practice philosophy in the proper manner is to practice for dying and death. If we are ever to have pure knowledge, we must escape from the body. And does purification not turn out to be, namely, to separate the soul as far as possible from the body, to dwell by itself both now and in the future? So for Plato, purification was ascending to contemplation, tapping into his subconscious mind, where his supposed immortal soul resides.
And you are moving toward the deeper subconscious self, which is where the soul abides in the subconscious.
Anything that could prepare the mind to enter an altered state, to obtain, as Plato says, pure knowledge, was the purpose for ascetic practices and monastic societies, such as founded by Pythagoras in the 6th century BC. Pythagoras greatly influenced Plato, and is most known for his mystical school and belief in reincarnation and the immortality of the soul, and was said to have remembered previous lives. Historian E.R. Dodds, in his book The Greeks and the Irrational, calls Pythagoras a Greek shaman, meaning that he experienced altered states and apparent out-of-body travel. Tradition ascribed the so-called Pythagorean theorem to him, though an archaeological discovery of cuneiform tablets dated between 1900 and 1600 BC proved that the theorem was known in Babylonia more than 1,000 years before Pythagoras was born. The same time and place where the first organized system of astrology emerged. The cradle of civilization, where the first known temples also appear, called ziggurats, or cosmic mountains, four-sided pyramids with steps to the top. It was believed to be the center of the world. Ascending the ziggurat was symbolic for rising to the heavens.
And that first and most important instruction is to have the spine straight, so that we can most easily ascend our consciousness and life energy up that spinal highway to the infinite.
At the summit, through altered states of consciousness, the shaman priest could meet with the gods, deified kings and queens in the afterlife. In their books, The Worship of the Dead and The Two Babylons, the authors provide conclusive evidence that the original pagan gods were once men and women in Babylonia, whose attributes after death were later applied to the sun, moon, and planets and became the very foundation of paganism, that is, nature and ancestor worship. The priest also practiced divination, using mathematics and astronomy as sacred sciences. Just like Pythagoras, an initiate in the Babylonian mysteries, the primal source of the mystery religions that would follow in Egypt, Phoenicia, Greece, and Rome. Inside the Vatican Palace is a famous painting called The School of Athens, which was completed in 1511, celebrating the ancient Greek philosophers Plato, Aristotle, Pythagoras, and many more. It's no surprise that such a painting exists in the Vatican, for we've just seen that the Greeks are the source of mysticism in Christianity and the belief in the immortality of the soul. The early church fathers of the Catholic Church, such as Jerome and Augustine, leave no doubt. The immortality of the soul and its continuance after the dissolution of the body, truths of which Pythagoras dreamed. For we made selection of the Platonists because they had the wisdom to perceive that the human soul, immortal as it is, cannot be happy except by partaking of the light. The ancient Greeks' legacy of mysticism also appears to include psychedelic intake. In the annual Eleusinian Mysteries, a religious event near Athens, Plato and other ancient Greeks fasted and drank a potion of a specific dose that gave them heavenly visions. Many believe this potion contained ergot, from which LSD is derived. In the Phaedrus, Plato describes the experience. We were initiated into that which is rightly called the most blessed of mysteries. We looked upon perfect apparitions which we saw in the pure light, being ourselves pure and not entombed in this which we call the body. Through mysticism, by meditation, psychedelic plants, fasting, music, or chanting, the initiate, like the shaman, seems to transcend human limits while in trance and to learn the apparent truth of an immediate afterlife. The practice of dying before you die It was Pythagoras, through Plato, that brought these shamanistic ideas to Western civilization. While others seemed to find help from ayahuasca, Vala's experiences resulted only in darkness.
Jag tyckte de kunde vara allt var kolsvart, alltså inuti mig, allt var kolsvart.
She desperately wanted to know the truth about reality and the purpose of life. During the Saturday night ceremony at Mount Shasta, her darkness was suddenly arrested, and the truth began to shine.
When you are in God's presence, you know, He opened my eyes and I saw exactly everything like you see me. The demons are real. They laughing, you are so stupid. Ha 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 ha. You don't understand you have a creator, God, who loves you, but you love sin and lies. So the voice told me, go home, just leave everything. So he comforted me. I felt such a love.
In my heart, I decide this is it. She's too dangerous. I cannot have anything to do with her anymore. She flew back to Sweden and I blocked her from my phone.
The only thing I was just thinking about, the love I felt for the first time in my life. He knew everything about me. He showed me like when you computer, everything like just seconds. He just showed me, he been with me. All my life, he been watching me. I love you. He loves us so, so much.
Vala is out of my life. And I go back to do more ayahuasca. I said, I know where I can get help. And this time, nothing. There's no communication. My mother's not there. Nothing. It's just nothing. Nothing is happening. I got really, really scared.
When I came back from Los Angeles, I started to pray for Samuel.
Samuel fell into a deep depression, and he became hopeless after hospitals, rehab centers, and drugs.
My father's side, they were devoted Muslim. They prayed to Allah every day. So I bought a Quran and covered my head and a mat. I went to mosque every day, looking, searching after this loving God. I knew He was God, but something was not right.
Vala and we start talking again, and to my very surprise, Vala is doing very well. So I said, okay, we have a God, and because we're born Muslims, you go to the God that you know. I said, this is easy. I did this as a kid, so I also get a prayer mat, a Quran, and...
You know, the spirit, demons, I went so deeply in the spiritism, so they was turning on and off.
Though Vala was practicing Islam, spirits harassed her, just like they did to Amanda and Roger Morneau.
I was so scared, I could not sleep. I had the red eyes. I could not speak with anyone. They would tell me, you lost your mind. So I went down on my knees and crying out again for help. Who are you? Help me. I want to know you. I want to know the hand, the love you showed me. I went back to sleep. I can't tell about vision or dream, but I saw Jesus Christ stood at the door with open arms, with the peace. And I just jumped and hugged him. And he said, I already defeated darkness. I am the way, the truth, and life.
2-3 weeks later, Vala calls me from Sweden again, and she says, no, it's not Allah, it's Jesus. I said, okay, it's Jesus. At that time, I had never opened a Bible. I didn't know there was a Holy Spirit. And also, as always, Vala, after she tells me something, she goes in prayer. And she was saying, God, only you can reveal the truth for Samuel.
What I have discovered to be true in the message of Jesus of Nazareth, I believe is truth and it's real, it's important, but such good news will not be presented as the only or the final good news.
What do we mean by calling little old Jesus of Nazareth the Alpha and the Omega of history? To formally say Jesus is God is bad theology, is incorrect.
If his students Richard Rohr and Paul Knitter weren't obvious enough, let's be clear what Karl Rahner, the famous Jesuit theologian and chief engineer of Vatican II, taught about Jesus and the nature of man. Rahner believed that the literal incarnation of God in Jesus is a myth, that Jesus was just a man, simply an expression of the non-dualistic unity between divinity and humanity, which can be realized and lived by all. But Jesus can't be just a man. He can't be just another teacher or prophet. Either he was who he claimed to be, or he was the greatest liar in history.
You Samaritans do not really know whom you worship. But we Jews know whom we worship, because it is from the Jews that salvation comes.
I know that the Messiah will come. And when he comes, he will tell us everything.
I am he. I who am talking with you.
Scholars have counted 300 or more Old Testament prophecies pointing to the world's Messiah, or Christ, who would come out of the Jewish nation.
You will offer the life of this creature to God as a sign.
The prophet Daniel, a contemporary of Pythagoras in the 6th century BC, predicted the exact year that the Christ would appear and the exact year he would be killed. In Daniel 9, the 70-week or 490-day prophecy provides the keys. Verse 25 says, "From the going forth of the command to restore and build Jerusalem until Messiah the Prince, there shall be 7 weeks, and 62 weeks. That's a total of 69 weeks. Using the Bible's prophetic time principle of a day for a year, we count 483 years, beginning in the fall of 457 BC, when Artaxerxes appointed a scribe named Ezra to return from the Jewish exile in Babylon to Jerusalem with money to rebuild and with authority to restore Israel's autonomy and sacrificial system.
Hear the word of the Lord.
With no 0 year, we land in the fall of 27 AD, when a prophet named John the Baptist announced the arrival of the Messiah and his mission.
I baptize you with water, but someone is coming who is much greater than I am. He will baptize you with the Holy Spirit and fire.
And John gave this testimony.
I saw the Spirit come down like a dove from heaven and stay on him. He is the one who baptizes with the Holy Spirit. I have seen it, and I tell you that he is the Son of God.
John cried out, "Behold the Lamb of God, which takes away the sin of the world." Every Jew knew what this meant. It was a death decree. So when would the Messiah die? Verse 27 tells us, "Then he shall confirm a covenant with many for 1 week." but in the middle of the week he shall bring an end to sacrifice and offering. If we let the Bible be its own interpreter, we find that God is the covenant maker.
Abraham, I am your God, and I will make my covenant between me and you. For I will make you the father of multitudes. Kings shall come from you.
A man of my age, how can I have a child? And how can Sarai?
Sarah shall bear you a son, and you will call him Isaac.
We have wood, but where is the lamb for a burnt offering?
God will provide the lamb.
Abraham, do not harm your child. For now I know that you fear God, seeing that you've not withheld your son, your beloved son.
God did provide the lamb for Abraham and Isaac, a symbol of his son, Messiah the Prince, who would die for a rebel planet. Jesus said, "Your father Abraham rejoiced to see my day, and he saw it and was glad." Then the Jews said to him, "You are not yet 50 years old, and have you seen Abraham?" Then Jesus said to them, "Most assuredly, I say to you, before Abraham was, I am." The Jews knew exactly what Jesus was claiming.
I am the God of thy father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. I have surely seen the affliction of my people which are in Egypt, for I know their sorrows. Therefore I will send thee, Moses, unto Pharaoh, that thou mayest bring my people out of Egypt.
But if I say to your children that the God of their fathers has sent me, they will ask, what is his name? And how shall I answer them?
I am that I am. Thou shalt say, I am hath sent me unto you.
Jesus was claiming to be the self-existent creator, the lawgiver, the only one who could redeem a rebel planet.
Written with the finger of God.
I have told you this now, before it all happens, so that when it does happen, you will believe.
Father, the hour has come. Give glory to your Son, so that the Son may give glory to you.
Dedicate them to yourself by means of the truth. Your word is truth.
I was born and came into the world for this one purpose, to speak about the truth. Whoever belongs to the truth listens to me. It is finished. I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one goes to the Father except by me. Put your finger here and look at my hands. Then reach out your hand and put it in my side. Stop your doubting and believe.
my Lord, and my God.
It is by the name of Jesus Christ of Nazareth, whom you crucified, but whom God raised from the dead, that this man stands before you healed. Salvation is found in no one else, for there is no other name under heaven given to men by which we must be saved.
I persecuted the followers of this way to their death, arresting both men and women and throwing them into prison, as also the high priest and all the council can testify. As I came near Damascus, suddenly a bright light from heaven flashed around me. I fell to the ground and heard a voice say to me, "Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me?" "Who are you, Lord?" I asked. "I am Jesus of Nazareth, whom you are persecuting," he replied. "Now, get up and stand on your feet. I have appeared to you to appoint you as a servant and as a witness of what you have seen of me and what I will show you."
We are witnesses of everything he did in the country of the Jews and in Jerusalem. They killed him by hanging him on a tree, but God raised him from the dead on the third day and caused him to be seen. He was not seen by all the people, but by witnesses whom God had already chosen, by us who ate and drank with him after he rose from the dead. He commanded us to preach to the people and to testify that he is the one whom God appointed as judge of the living and the dead. All the prophets testify about him, that everyone who believes in him receives forgiveness of sins through his name.